Hey guys, what is up? And today we're going to be checking out the K92 keyboard by MotoSpeed, which in my opinion could be one of the better options for a budget, full RGB programmable keyboard for its price. So before I begin on the video, if you would like to purchase one of these keyboards for yourself, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description down below to where you can buy one at its cheapest price. Anyway, to kick things off, inside the box you'll find the keyboard itself, an instruction booklet which you can really just toss. It's very simple to set up and you really won't need it, and a wrist rest that attaches to the bottom of the keyboard using some plastic clips. Now you don't have to use this, but personally I feel like it does help by elevating your wrists and reducing some strain when you're typing, so it does make it a little bit more comfortable when you're typing on the keyboard. Now this piece of aluminum on the top of the keyboard is very thin, as you can see here, but it does help to give it some rigidity, and the edge of it is chamfered, which does make it look a little bit more premium. Now the edges of the aluminum are actually very sharp, so that's just something else to keep in mind, although it doesn't really bother me when I'm typing. Now personally, I like the look of the aluminum on the keyboard, but the one thing I feel like that takes away from the look of the keyboard is the large MotoSpeed logo at the top right. Now it's not terrible and it's definitely not a deal breaker, but I just wish they didn't make it quite as large and quite so obvious. Now the rest of the keyboard is made out of plastic, but the build quality is still very good and I have no complaints with the build quality, and so far I haven't had any problems with it flexing or anything like that. Now taking a closer look around the keyboard, you'll find our standard lock key indicator lights and a full-size number pad, which is always nice to see. Now this is where it gets interesting. Moving down here, if you hold down the function key, you can actually use these keys to select an RGB setting. Then from there you can use the left and right arrow keys to select the color for that setting, and once you've found the setting you want, you can adjust the brightness with the up and down arrow keys. Now this is really nice to have, so if you ever want to change the color and lighting setup on your keyboard, you can always just do it right off your keyboard without having to touch any kind of software or anything like that. However, if you really want to take full advantage of the RGB, I recommend you install the drivers for this keyboard, which I will talk a little bit more about later on. Now moving underneath the keyboard, you're not going to find anything that exciting under here. You'll find your normal flip out keyboard feet, which are plastic, and although they aren't rubberized, they still help to prevent the keyboard from sliding around on my desk. And finally over here we have your standard USB cable. It's not braided, but it gets the job done, and that's pretty much it for underneath the keyboard. Moving on to the more interesting stuff, this keyboard is using copies of Cherry MX Blue switches, which although they aren't the real Cherry MX Blue switches, they are actually really nice to type and game on. This keyboard is very satisfying to type on, and just keep in mind that it is pretty loud, although to me that's not really a downside and more of an added bonus. This next audio test I'm going to show you guys should give you a decent idea of how they sound. So as you can hear, they are fairly loud, but in my opinion, I really don't think that's much of a downside. Now I can tell you right now that this keyboard is excellent for typing. It has a satisfying click, and when using the wrist rest, I found my hands really never got tired, and I never felt uncomfortable when typing as I did on some other keyboards. Now moving on, I couldn't review an RGB keyboard without mentioning RGB, and overall I feel like MotoSpeed did a very good job at the lighting on this keyboard. There's really not any problems I've found with it in the last week I've been using it, and as I said earlier, you can control some of the lighting directly on the keyboard, but to take full advantage of it, I really recommend you download the software, which I will leave in a link down in the description down below. So once you download and set up the software, when you open it up, you'll see on the left here that you can actually set up different color profiles. So for example, say I want a profile for a standard non-changing red color. All I have to do is toggle on light, click here, and from here you have a ton of different options. Each one is going to give you a completely different lighting effect. So say I want a normal red color like I said before, all I have to do is click normally on, click the color, click red, and just like that, it's set. Now say for example you want to set a profile for FPS games, so you'd only have the WASD controls lit up and all the other ones would be turned off. All you have to do is click light, click here, go down to custom backlight mode and select FPS on here. And just like that, you have it set for FPS games. So really, there are hundreds if not thousands of different color profiles you can set up, and you really can customize it to your liking, which is one of the best parts about having an RGB keyboard, and it really will fit into pretty much any setup. So for example, I have mine set orange to match my personal setup theme, but you can really experiment with it to find what you like. Before I move on, I'm just going to take a second to show you a few of the different RGB lighting options you have to choose from. So hopefully that short video helped to show you just how many lighting modes you have to choose from, and really each one of those lighting modes can be customized with your own colors. So say for example you don't want a wave of blue, you want a wave of orange, you can customize it to show just a wave of orange, or you can have multiple colors at once. There's really just so much stuff you can do using this. So if you're going for a certain look with your keyboard, you should be able to find it using this. Now before I finish off the review, I really need to mention that this keyboard does support macros, so using this software you can also set up macro keys, which is a very nice addition as well. So far I haven't really found myself using them, but that option is available to you if you want to use macro keys, which is actually a main feature of this keyboard. Overall, I just feel like this keyboard has a lot to offer at a fairly low price. It's not super cheap, but it is much cheaper than most other keyboards that offer the same kind of features. And if you're in the market for a mechanical keyboard that includes all the features of higher end, more expensive keyboards, then this is definitely worth considering. Also, I would like to give a huge thank you to Gearbest for sending this keyboard out for review. These are my own opinions. This video is not sponsored, they just sent it out for review, and that's pretty much it for this review. I hope you guys found it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.